Today we are building a Warhammer 40,000 diorama, and as always we are going to start by cutting up some foam, which leads us to clay time, where we can start to sculpt the landscape of this diorama using some air drying clay. After wetting my glove, this will allow me to soften the clay and make it more moldable. And while it takes a couple hours to dry, let's make some rocks out of plaster and get ready to hot glue them in place. And this diorama is taking place during the Great Tyranid War. And after playing way too much Space Marine 2, it's finally time to get some payback on our Tyranid friends. So after clipping him, bending him, and generally just stretching this model, let's glue him in place. So when it comes to making a semi-realistic diorama, getting the ground texture can be one of the hardest things to accomplish. Now, I'm quite thankful. I think I've made something that I really enjoy, especially when it comes to making this ground texture. So let's have a look. And to start, I'm using Smart Mud 2.0. This is a really lovely sticky clay that really acts like, as it says, Smart Mud. Now, one of the really annoying things about this clay though is it's very sticky, which is why I like to use a glove, as it allows me to squish it in place. And in the harder spots, I like to use a brush to really get it stuck in there. And as you can see, I'm now patting it down, as it will make that nice uniform ground texture we're looking for. And to jazz things up a bit, I found these really cool tree-like things on Amazon. I'll leave them in the description below if you want to check them out. But they really add to this kind of jungly, dry theme that I'm aiming for. And while they are pretty delicate, I whacked out some tweezers and the super glue to try and get them stuck in place. As this Tyranid has fallen, I kind of want to make this diorama seem a bit overrun. A bit like, spoilers, the Space Marine has been on the run for quite a while. So, welcome to the lab. It's time to get this ground textured, and to start I'm going to be using some normal sand. And I'm going to be sprinkling this all over the diorama before grabbing a brush and getting rid of any of the sand on the rocks. Then I found these lovely foam leaves, which I gave the sprinkle treatment. Now it's time to get everything glued down, and for this I'm going to be using some isopropyl alcohol, and as you can see, the glue was a bit too thick, so let's come back and add some more water to that glue. But that isopropyl alcohol will get rid of all of the surface tension, allowing our white glue to soak nicely in. So we can quickly take advantage of all of this wet ground by sprinkling some more sand and a bit more foam on top. A few hours have now passed, and it's time to see if what we made looks any good. And to see as I painted the foam black to protect it, then spray painted it black and white from above. And look at that, you can already see all of that amazing detail come to life. However, I think it's time to take a break from the diorama and start painting a blood angel. And to start, we're going to base coat his whole body in Mephiston red. And about 2 layers of paint later, it's time to block out all of the armor panels and accessories in a black paint. Now I'm going to let you in on a little secret, and it's these fine-tipped pens, which we're going to panel line all of our shoulder pads with. Before moving swiftly onto this horrid-looking paint pot, where we can paint all the leather brown. I recently also got this new warm metallic silver paint, and I wanted to give it a nice try, and I think it actually looks pretty good. Now, I used to really dread painting purity seals, but after a quick bone white base coat and some writing from that pen, it looks pretty alright. And everything's starting to come together now. So after painting some gold trinkets, let's paint his eyes green on top of some white. Now it's missing a little bit of that contrast, so let's add some highlights in a sketch-like pattern and make this blood angel start to pop. And to add some of the finishing touches, let's add his decals to his shoulder pads, and of course, finally highlight his Aquila. Now I actually get, surprisingly, quite a bit of backlash whenever I add some enamels to my paintings, but I think it looks really cool, and that's all that really matters. So next I covered the model in dark mud and removed it with some white spirits. Once it dried, I applied a second wash of dark streaking grime, and that's how he looks like once he's dried. So with our blood angel finally painted up, let's head over to his arch enemy, the mini lictors, or rather known as a leaper. And to start, we're going to paint all of its carapace in black. In a black paint. And for all of his claws and hooves, I think that's what they are, we are going to be painting them in Steel Legion Drab. which swiftly moving on to my favourite part as we get out our voluptuous pink and start to paint all of his fleshy bits. And these are our main base colours for the Tyranid, which means it's time to start highlighting up, and to start I'm going to be painting with a light grey all over our grey skin, leaving some of the grey towards the shadows for some future contrast. I then quickly painted all of his face tentacles with our previous pink, and it's time to thin down that pink into a wash-like consistency and start to coat the miniature in it. Now this is a really important step as I grab a new brush and I dip it into a little bit of water, as I want to slowly remove some of the pink wash from the surfaces, leaving that nice white behind on top. I really kind of just want this pink into the recesses so it looks like a nice warmth under the skin. And once that pink had finally dried, I quickly gave all of the black armor carapace a quick edge highlight of a mid-tone grey. Now it's time to add some enamels, so I grabbed a dark brown wash and thinned it slightly with some mineral spirits. I then began to coat the whole mini in it, the reason being I really wanted to have the consistency through both of the paint schemes for the Tyranid and the Space Marine, so it really looks like they truly belong together. And now it's time to use the exact same method we did with the pink, but this time I dipped my brush in some mineral spirits and began to wick away all of the excess enamel washes so it leaves that nice white underneath. Then about a day later, once it had dried, it's time to add some more white highlights over all of the skin to make this Tyranid really nice and vibrant, but in a dark way. For this I really aimed for just the edges of the skin, like the ribs and those weird kind of bones that protrude from the Tyranid. And because I really wanted this to look kind of gross, I grabbed a gloss varnish and put all of those weird tentacles and his arm snippers to make it look kind of wet and gross. Now it's time to complete this gross effect, and I grabbed some Uhu glue and used a stick to connect each mandible to each other, and with this glue acting like some gross saliva protruding from his claws. I found a really easy way to help this is to just kind of snap it off at the top instead of getting it everywhere over the model, which is quite easy to do. And there you have it, a beautifully gross Tyranid. Some would say grimdark. No, let's not go that far. Now since both of our friends are finally painted, it's time to get back to the diorama and start painting over in a nice light green. Now for this diorama I tried to find a really fun setting for it to take place in, and since the devastation of Baal is probably the obvious choice, I actually struggled finding what the flora and fauna were on the planet. So without that kind of inspiration, I decided to go for more of an Endor theme from Star Wars. So with that in mind, I decided to add some shadows to this light green with a yellowy brown to get that kind of foresty feel in the mix. I then decided to paint the rocks in the best rock colour I can think of, grey, and slowly deepen that dark grey with some blacks and kind of sprayed it over some of the areas where the shadows would be over this terrain. And then using a light brown, I added this over all the dirty patches where the sand and the foam flocking didn't really touch to add that more dirt into the atmosphere. So with the ground looking quite messy now, I painted each of those leaves we put down earlier with a nice light green, and this really broke up the terrain and made it look really nice and connected with each other. So to paint the highlights on the rocks, I find a really fun and nice easy way is to just wipe most of the paint off your brush and just stipple that light grey over all of the raised areas on the rocks. Then once the main colours of this medium grey are down, I added a nice whiter light grey to it to add those really nice highlights. And all that's really left to do is to paint this Tyranid and this unfortunate chopped off arm from a Blood Angel. And just like magic, it's done. So let's really quickly grab that Uhu glue back out and add some blood trails for this Tyranid and the poor Blood Angel. And just like that, I think it's done. And you know what, this diorama was actually a lot of fun to make, and I hope you enjoy it too. And if you did, make sure to like and subscribe or just comment, I really appreciate it. And as always, I've been Reese, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!